Would you like to play City Skylines without running out of money? I don't think we're going to have to worry about running out of money in this episode. This is our Less Traffic Livestream, and this is the city of New Springfield. This is one of my first cities that I ever built, and I hope the stream is stable enough today. Yeah, so hopefully it won't be jerky on you. My computer is fairly beefy, but it is not necessarily super fast. How does everything look for you guys? Let me know in the comments. I'd really surely appreciate it. This is one of my first cities. It's called New Springfield, and it is it's got about 300,000 people. You may have already seen the flyover video that I did maybe a few months ago, I think it was. It is not on a strict grid plan, as you may have already noticed. It has also got a lot of detailed stuff in it. It also has a lot of vanilla assets still in it, so it's not perfect. So, and you'll have to pardon me because my graphics are going to be super jerky, but, I think you'll get the idea of what you can do. Yeah, it's a bit laggy. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm hoping this will work out. If I have to load an earlier version, it'll be kind of a bummer because I won't have all the assets loaded. It's not probably internet lag. It's probably my machine lagging. And I don't even have the graphics turned up high anyway. Yeah, well, it's going to be choppy. This jerkiness that you're seeing right here, tell me if my voice is jerky. The graphics are going to be jerky because this city has almost 300,000 people, and I'm not. If it's buffering, then that's going to suck. Yeah, it's got about 300,000 sims. So, and I don't think I have the graphics turned up very high. I don't have any graphic mods loaded that I'm aware of. I hope I didn't accidentally load one. Well, at least nothing besides Ultimate Eye Candy. So it's going to be a little laggy. Everything's going to look a little jerky, but it still looks kind of cool, doesn't it? I hope. Okay, audio is good. Voice is good. Okay. So that means that it's not buffering on me because YouTube is warning me, hey, I'm buffering. So that would be bad. Anyway, so glad to have you all here. First off, this is live, so please ask questions. I want to show you guys some of the things I do with the cities when I'm playing around on my own. This is going to be all sorts of mistakes in this thing because this city is several years old. I work on it from time to time, and it's gotten so big and so slow on my computer, unfortunately, that it's really hard to play around with as much as I'd like. Maybe when I upgrade a computer at some point, if the prices ever come down, we'll be able to think about that. But it's got highways, as you may have already noticed. It's got skyscrapers galore. It's got a lot of detail work that's been put into it. And there's a lot of parkland. I want to show you some wild things that I've put in here. Oops. Well, that's what exactly I wanted to happen. We've even got a few suburbs. All right, so let me give you a quick lay of the land here. This started out as a vanilla city at some point, not too long after I got the game. But before I actually knew what I was doing. So when you see all this more money, less traffic stuff, I didn't really have a lot of struggle with money because I feel like SimCity really gets you into a good place for that. I played a lot of SimCity over the years, and SimCity 3000 and SimCity 4 really kicked your butt financially, especially at the beginning, so you had to really get used to this. A lot of things are probably not going to be working very well in this either because for whatever reason I've got a bug, and I've seen this is actually pretty common, that hospitals aren't taking patients. I don't know why. So this guy here is really struggling with noise, probably from the metro station that's close by. But anyway, there's not a lot of, I didn't have a lot of DLCs when I built this city either. I think I'd just gotten Park Life when I started working on some of the stuff. I did not have industries or campus or any of that other fun stuff, which I would have loved to have had. So anyway, hopefully this will be a little inspiring to you. What I think is really cool is the road layout. The start square, I think if I remember right, was somewhere around here. There was originally... Okay, so, and by the way, all the streets are named in this city. So that's pretty cool. All right, so this is Mulberry Avenue right here. Mulberry Avenue, and this is High Street. And it runs north and south right through our central business district. I didn't call it downtown just because, I don't know, whatever. And then we've got Market, Park, and Lake Street, then also Pine Avenue. And all this runs into the downtown area. I think the start square was ended somewhere around here. So I just dropped High Street right straight down here from wherever Mulberry comes out. And eventually I layered in this highway right here. I've moved this north-south expressway around a little bit here and there, but it's relatively in the same place where it started. I've got some really elaborate interchanges over here. As you can see, I have some elaborate traffic issues as well, but this thing actually moves. This is a single point urban interchange with a basket weave diamond interchange on top of it. I'll explain how that works later, but there's some really cool little traffic things going on here, and that guy is blocking traffic. Wish you'd get out of the way. But these traffic lights are all timed theoretically to keep traffic moving. It looks like they're going to go now. Here we go. This took a long time to work out. I've reworked this a million times. I could show you the evolution of it. It's pretty cool. But that single point urban interchange actually does work properly the last I checked. And I made the huge mistake of making this whole area right here industrial originally. It's not anymore. Only about half of it's industrial, and it's still probably too much. I also expanded over here after I fixed all this over here. What are you going to do? You need industry, right? So, anyway, it sort of just kept growing. And it's about 300,000 people. There's actually a story with this. I don't have to pull this out when I take a break. I'm going to have to take a look at this. See if I can pull up the story that I actually wrote for this, because there was a lot of things that happened. Maybe I'll actually do a video and just tell the story for you guys. But I sort of made up a story that goes along with how this city developed. Now you can see a lot of low-density neighborhoods through here that I still have to work out. But all I really did was I just basically did what I always tell everybody else to do. I let the terrain be my guide. This area was relatively flat. There's a road that runs along the riverfront right here. And there's some pretty steep hills going down to that. You can kind of get an idea right there. So I just kept a nice grid pattern up here for south of Park, that neighborhood, and in downtown. But it's not perfect because you see all sorts of roads and they're curving and all this other fun stuff. It was really complicated to get. I mean, Cranston Park was not too bad as far as I've got a lot of row houses in here. I think these look really good. A lot of these are from Find Build. So if you are familiar with, if you have the ability to go get stuff on the Steam Workshop and you want to make something look like, you know, an old American city, especially more towards the east, although I suppose this would probably work for a West Coast city like Los Angeles or San Francisco to some extent too, especially the ones with the bay windows. You can really do great with Find Build. Just him alone, he's got a great Brooklyn asset set. Well, I don't necessarily know that it's a he, but I'm assuming. There's some really great stuff out there from him that just will really make your city shine. In the, I would say, the just above low density area here. Try removing shadows. Let me see if I can do that. I know there's several mods on here that will kill my frame rate. Hopefully not too bad. Remove shadows. Although the shadows actually sort of... Oh, let's just... Oh. It just doesn't look the same without the... Oh, well, that's not too bad, actually. Let's check, see how the frames are doing now. It might be a little smoother. Well, anyway, we'll go with that. I actually sort of hate losing the shadows because if you're a photographer or anything, shadows are where the drama is. So anyway, yeah, I've got a lot of neighborhoods with row houses, and this one over here was not too bad, but Elmhurst was ridiculous. All these curvy streets. I actually relayed out a lot of the streets in here to get these lined up. It is not easy to do, and I could probably stand for some more decoration. I also redid the park and everything in here to make it look cool. Let's see what else we got here. Turn the shadows off. Yeah, I gave it a shot. Yeah, these are 10 by 10 blocks. Thanks for asking. I forgot to mention that. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad it looks a little better. It's still dropping frames, but not as bad as before, I think. And the city is not as busy as I wish it was. I imagine there's probably some errors and stuff in there as far as some of the streets and everything are built. There's a lot of tunnels in this town, too. One of the other things... yeah, I'll just share this with you really quick, and then I'm going to get into some of the down and dirty of some of these things. Oh, that's kind of a cool interchange there. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see that. And there's a rail line layered in there that goes into a tunnel as it drops down closer to river level and goes through another tunnel. This was all very... I've probably spent hundreds of hours on this city alone. It's really nuts. Carbon Heights is named Carbon Heights, just FYI, because I used to have a bunch of industry over here, and that was on top of the industry I had over in Western Park. I think there was a lot of forestry here, a lot of generic up here, and I had ore down here. That didn't work very well. I had so much gridlock, I couldn't even tell you. And then to top it all off, over here on the other end of over in Spring Mill, that's called Spring Mill because there used to be a lot more industry over here than just this. I think almost all of this was industrial, and I think there might have even been some over here. I've redeveloped that. And I've also expanded this interchange, and it's still probably, it barely does its job. I'm looking forward to finding out what happens as I develop all of this over here. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with it. The terrain's a lot more tricky over here because it's a lot steeper, but it should provide some nice city views, which is kind of cool. Yeah, that actually doesn't look too bad without the shadows. It does move a lot smoother. Hopefully that's working out for you guys. Pretend it's a hazy day at noon. Yeah, that'll be good. I can make it a hazy day at noon. I can just change the sun with ultimate eye candy. So anyway, after I got this city built over here, let me get rid of all of go to a free camera here. After I built this whole city, mainly downtown, I had some industrial over here. I think I had expanded almost out on this entire peninsula, at least up to where the highway was, maybe a little bit over here. I realized, well, there used to be a highway run through here. This is actually a vanilla map. If you're familiar, it is a vanilla map. This freeway is in about the same place, at least up to here. This freeway I added, well, actually I extended, if I remember right, down here. And then I buried it over here on the end of the peninsula, and this is roughly in the same place. Over here, I moved everything. There used to be a highway that ran right around through here, I think it was, crossed the river, and went up here to where it met up with another highway that basically ran right over where that bridge is right there. Now, my first story was that this bridge was replaced by the highway, but then I realized I really didn't want to have a freeway running right here where this rail line basically runs, right next to my lake. It was so close it made it almost impossible for me to develop that area right there. And then I think it connected back over here. I just didn't like it, so I demolished it. I built a ring road over here, which isn't really all that busy, and rebuilt this whole area over here. I have all sorts of ideas for that area, but I just haven't gotten around to them because I've been too busy placing buildings and making the rest of the city look nice. This was also completely different. After I moved those highways, I didn't like what I had done there either. But this little highway here sort of went through, and I just didn't like exactly how it went. So I decided to bury it. underneath this city. Basically, the whole story is that the railroad really didn't have anywhere to go. I just didn't have the heart to demolish anything over here. And this tip of the peninsula used to have a railroad station. There used to be a Duffield station right here. This is High Avenue, and that's University Avenue. And it was just so tight. I just couldn't get the trains. They would get stuck. It just didn't work. So I ended up redeveloping all of that and making it just another business district, more business down through here. So it's this is a really big city. It's pretty complicated, and I could probably tell you a story about every single neighborhood. You know, what it was like before. I want to make a video. I don't have a lot of really good early saves from that, but I want to make a video that shows what's going on. I really appreciate it when you @ me on the chat. It makes it so easy for me to see what you guys want to ask me. So feel free to @ me in the chat. It will highlight it in orange, so it's really easy for me to spot, and then I can see what's going on. How do you keep car numbers in check with such a huge city? I currently have an 80,000 population city and already run at over half the vehicle limit. Well, that's a good question. Let me show you what's going on with the vehicle limit here. I've got the, I think that this is the Watch It mod. It's either the Watch It or the Show It mod. I get confused. I got them at the same time, and I don't remember, and I just pulled them down last night, actually. This is showing all the game limits. This is either the Watch It or the Show It mod. I'm really not sure. I think it's Watch It. I could be wrong. You hit that little circle with the slash through it, and you get the game limits. And so we've got vehicle limits, and I'm not even... I'm a little over half on the vehicle limit. I'm almost at the tree limit, but that's because I went crazy with trees back before, and I had unlimited trees. I got rid of a bunch of trees, so I thought, oh, I don't need that mod anymore. I probably don't need a lot of the trees that I have. I've been a little more sparing with those as I've been moving along through. Vehicles parked, I'm maxed out on that, just about. And as far as citizens, this city, that's one of the things I haven't shown you yet, is I haven't shown you the transit map. That's really pretty extensive. I mean, the bus service maybe not quite as extensive as it could be, but it's a pretty big transit system. Let me pull that up. That's actually one of the things I really wanted to show you guys. So there's a city center loop. It's really messy, just because of the way the stations work, and because I've got a lot of crossing lines going through here. So let me see if I can cut this down. You got an idea of how many... that's not what I wanted. Pull it up again. Okay. That should make it a little easier. All right, so I have... I want to say... Well, now let me pull that back up again. I have several metro lines. I'll have to post this to Discord or something and show you guys the transit and street map. It'll have all of this in it, but I've got, I think, is that 7? Yeah, 7 metro lines. I've got 1 commuter rail line, which isn't quite as busy as I'd like, but it is sort of important. I've got 2, which is really just kind of a split single tram line. No trolley buses, those didn't happen, and I've got 34 bus lines. I forgot it puts the number on the bottom. So we've got a lot of bus lines. A lot of them just feed the rest of the transit system. I don't think I even have an airport in the city, even though it is huge. I'd like to have an airport. I just haven't decided where I want to put one. And so when I can't decide, I just don't do it, rather than doing it and hating it later. So all of the transit, all the metro lines converged in the central business district. We have the Pine line that runs right on through here and just terminates over here. I forget the name of that park. Over here on Park Avenue and High Street. We've got a central station right here where the red line, which is the High Line, goes through. And also the Market line, which is the Gold line. And then what's really messed up is... oh, wait. Oh yeah, that's the Park line. I forgot about the Park line, the green one. Then Park and Market both. This is Park. This is Market Street, Market Avenue. That's Park Avenue. Yeah, that's right. And those have, the streets go across, so do the lines. They terminate right over here in Western Park. They run together through this section of rail. It seems like that works out okay. It doesn't get too congested, but it's still pretty congested. It's really hard to run metro lines, multiple metro lines on the same set of tracks and stations. What do the numbers in the bus city names mean? I will get to that in a bit. Let me explain the metros, and then I think the buses will probably make a little bit of sense. If I wish I had the map, I'll have to post that map once we get done with the stream. I think you'll find it interesting because I think it makes some of it a little clearer. What was the other question? Can you show us the zone ratio later? Yes. Oh, by the way, I'm using Realistic Population Revisited, which used to be the Realistic Population and Consumption mod. And I really highly recommend that because it balances things out in the game so much better than the way it was. Yeah, I would definitely recommend Metro, by the way, the British man. It's a lot easier to set up, and it's more flexible in a lot of ways, especially if you use the mods. There's another asset creator. When we get to the Steam Workshop, I'll show you. He makes a whole slew of really great metro station mods, and he's got them all updated for Sunset Harbor. You probably noticed that some of my metro stations are itty bitty tiny. That is because I have not updated these all to the new Sunset Harbor style metro stations. I think I upgraded the ones out here. I'm not even sure if it's running the long trains. It kind of looks like it might not be. Anyway, so yeah, great mods, great assets and stuff there. All right, so what's really kind of complicated is this city center loop that I have here. The idea is I wanted to hit all of these stations, and the only way I could really do it is I also wanted to have trains that went in each direction. So I've got this orange line, which is the Sunset line, which runs through Sunrise line. I'm sorry, the Sunrise line runs through Sunrise Valley and out to the Sheffield neighborhood, which used to be its own town. I'll get to that story in a minute too. And then this blue line here runs under Lake Street, and it runs the other direction of the loop, as you can see here. So basically, this is a really super duper easy way for Sims to go through in the center. They're going to cross any one of a number of lines. It's really easy for them to transfer, and makes it very efficient to get around town, even if you're going all the way across, because some of these are pretty extensive. Now, there's one metro line that does not go through the center of the city, and that is the Sheffield line. And that connects the village of Lakeside out here down along the river, and this is Sheffield right here. That's the center of it. And then it goes right out along Sheffield Boulevard and into Pinewood, which is another big suburb that I've built out here. So those are the metro lines, and then there's a rail line. I'll show you that really quick. It's just a really simple commuter line. It connects Pinewood, which is just outside the city limit. The city limit runs right along through these railroad tracks. I think this is the only freight terminal I think this is the closest freight terminal to downtown, and it's still not even on the side of the river. So, yeah, we really ran the rail in a circuit around the city. So that commuter line goes on up in here to Sheffield Station, which is the main station for the entire city. I'll get to why it is that Sheffield Station is way out here and not anywhere near downtown, and why there's also a whole bunch of big buildings, almost like another downtown. There's a story behind that. Hopefully I didn't already tell it and forgot. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Let's see. Can I? Oh, hey, I can. Oh, this is great. So then that commuter line runs in a tunnel over the river and out here to, well, it would really be helpful if I didn't do that, to Lakeview Village. That's what it's called. And Lakeview Village it was a village. Now it's kind of big. So that station is actually in the city, that passenger station. And then it runs way out here where there's a whole slew of rail lines that kind of converge and cross. And it runs out to Cambridge Valley, where it terminates. Now, there are intercity lines that run in from Cambridge Valley because the rail line keeps going. That is not the major rail that runs to the area. There is a lot of freight and passenger rail that runs along basically parallel to the North-South Expressway. There's a big rail terminal right here. I think it has access to one here and another one here in Summit Park. And then it runs either into the city underneath, but there's no station until you get to Depot Park, or the main line continues out through Wilcox Mills and through a tunnel and up into the mountains, sort of. And I still haven't rebuilt the rest of the freeway out here through Taylor Valley. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the rail system. Now the buses, I believe we are facing north. The buses, there's one more set of rails. And that is the, what's the name of these lines? Yeah, the Summit Park and I forget what they call the other one. Oh yeah, it runs out to Richie Boulevard. Richie Boulevard is a row house neighborhood that's way out from downtown. That was built before I upgraded any of this other stuff to row houses, which I haven't done yet. And it runs through Anderson Park and Lakeview Village. It connects everything up to Lakeview Station right there. And this thing actually snakes down past the art museum and then into downtown, into the center town, through the South of Park neighborhood, and right down Water Street, and down into Cranston Park, and all the way out to Founders Point. Which, the whole idea of why it's called Founders Point is because when the founders arrived to build a city, or just build a settlement, they landed here at the tip of the peninsula with the confluence of the two rivers here. So that's why it's called Founders Point. However, they ended up building the main part of town down here where the central business district is. So that gives you an idea here of what's going on. Now the buses run in places. Some of them are long distance buses, like along through the Riverfront district. There's the Riverfront line that runs way far. Another one that's, well, I'll show you Western Park since that one's easy. I've got a few lines that will feed into the metro stations that connect some of this industrial area over here. There's a lot of overlap on these lines, and that's because they're just so stinking busy that if I don't do that, it ends up being too much and it can't handle it. So there's a couple of ways that you can get across to downtown. You can take this line up here and get on the metro, or you can take one of two lines. I think there's two lines. One comes from Fractal Park, one comes from Confluence Park. They go across the highway. This is a bus-only highway interchange because the ramps are just too short for me to allow cars on it, and obviously I need to work on that with a node controller a little bit. But these are only for buses. When I open it up to cars, it just causes too many problems because I've got too many ramps merging through here, merging with this one. I can sneak a bus in there, but I can't sneak a whole bunch of cars and trucks. Not that there's going to be too many going into this neighborhood. There's really not a whole lot of commercial development or anything in there. That's another question we have here. Do you think a lot of high-density buildings make it harder to get a good public transport going? Honestly, that's a really good question, first off. But it's kind of complicated. I would say that yes and no, both at the same time, because it's really easy to know where you want to put your transit lines Or actually, it's really easy to know where you want to put your skyscrapers if you know where you want to put your transit lines. As you can see, one of the things about realistic population and consumption, or RPC, or whatever they call it, realistic population revisited, RPR, I guess now, is that if a building is bigger volume-wise, then that mod assumes that it is going to hold more. So just to give you an example, these houses, oh, well, these are old houses, so they probably hold multiple households like they used to. Let me see here. Where did I put? Oh, over here. I know for sure that I built Van Gogh Circle recently. So with realistic population, you've got one household in a single family dwelling. And with some of these row houses here, I think some of these are singles, you're going to end up with 3 households, maybe 4, depending on how big the row house is. These ones here are taller, so they've got 4 households. It's not always perfect. Like, I might be more confident. Well, that one's got 5, so that makes sense. But basically, it does some math to figure out how big the building is and how many households it thinks should be in there. And so bigger buildings like this one are going to have a lot more. Like this one is an office building. It's got 400 some workers in it. This is a smaller office. Well, it's a commercial building, but it still has 39 workers. Offices can really have some dense worker numbers. Well, like over here, these are some office buildings. That one's got 188. That's another commercial. That one's got 74 maximum. So it's a really great mod for making the economy and the geography more sensible. This residential building's got 38 households in it. This one over here is pretty big, 52 households. But if we go to the center of town here again, some of these buildings really hold quite a lot of workers. 571 workers there, and that's a commercial. That's quite a lot. And then we've got some more modern buildings over here. The modern ones really pack in the workers a lot of times. And the households, 102 households in that one. It ends up with you end up with a situation where if you don't build public transportation, you're really in trouble. And a lot of times you need multiple transportation lines in order to make it work. I want to do a series on that because I feel like it's more realistic. It gets you to build a city, I think, that you're going to really have to plan out where your transit goes and where your building goes. And if you'll notice one thing here, let me go to the free camera mode here. You're going to notice, I think it's even easier with the night cycle, but we'll just go with this right now. So there's a lot of streets that you can really easily see, like Lake Street right here. You can see Park Avenue crossing. You know, maybe I will go to the night cycle. I think it'll be easier to see because the street lights really highlight everything nicely. Okay. So you can see downtown, a lot of light concentrated there. You can see the bridges going across the river. You can see the highway right here. The dark area is usually where a rail line is, and that's because it doesn't need to be lit up. But you've got a high street running through here. Mulberry runs across. Several streets running through here. I think that's Peninsula Road. Station Avenue. Griswold. No, this is Griswold Boulevard. Anyway, you've got a lot of different streets running through here, but they all spoke out. Maybe that's not as easy as I'd hoped to see. Let me go back to the daytime. But this is a great example of a spoken hub city because this is where the hub is. And these are spokes. So you've got Lake Street, high running in both directions. You have Mulberry running to the west, to the east. University eventually connects up to Crestview, which runs a ring, but also becomes another main road that runs out. We've got some ring roads out here, like Sanders Road. And I can't think of the name of that one. I think that's Sterling Road. That's Sterling Road. And then you've got some of those spokes reach out. Like this is the Imperial Highway, and that's the Imperial Freeway. This being Imperial Mountain. So Imperial Highway replaced and bypassed all this stuff that I haven't built yet, and plugs into this greenway. Now this greenway is interesting because some of it is highway. Whoops. Some of it's freeway. It starts out as freeway out here in the Sheffield neighborhood. Right here you've got the Imperial Highway running right through here. It has the two exits coming off of it. It has the interchange kind of mixed in there. This sort of breaks one of my rules. A lot of highway engineers don't like having service interchanges and system interchanges mixed. It happens anyway. So right here, it really wasn't practical to do it very easily some other way. But we don't get in huge amounts of traffic. Somebody asked about traffic numbers earlier. I just want to note that once you get past 80 or 100,000 sims, a lot of times the game will start generating fewer trips. I think it's designed to do that so that you can keep building without getting completely buried in traffic. So this greenway here, though, there's an exit right here at station, another entrance to getting on the other direction. You'll notice that I do not have the highway entrance and exit anywhere near the center of my city. At least this neighborhood here. This is a really dense neighborhood that would be serious trouble if I built a highway interchange somewhere through here. So I have it over here, and then the street grid is able to separate out a lot of traffic. We have the same thing going on over here. We've got two bridges, Mulberry Street, Crestview. Well, actually, no, I don't call that Crestview over here. Oh, I forget what that's called. Well, anyway, it's been a while. So this interchange service is that, and then it turns into a greenway. So there's parks in the middle of the highway, and there are at-grade intersections with metro stations a lot of times right nearby. This was complicated to set up. I had to set this up so that the traffic cycles would be timed. I can't remember if I have this timed for the entire highway. I don't think I do. I think I have each of these set up on their own. Yeah, I don't think there's any other intersections, just the two. Oh, you know what? I don't think these are coordinated at all, now that I think about it. So basically, I have a long enough cycle that traffic gets going and keeps going. In a lot of cases, the traffic will arrive just in time, just because the traffic cycle, light cycle, isn't too long. But it's not so long that the left turns here and the straight throughs back up in between. So that's why timed traffic lights are really the coolest. So I love these things. But I just thought it would be a unique way to build through the city without having to, have a highway or have something that's fast, have a faster road that runs through the city. It's part of the reason why over here with the rail line, the map had a freeway that ran out through here. Actually, it ran around through here. I replaced that with a rail line because I already had the greenway here. I really didn't need anything more than this. But I've got a few at-grade intersections, and then in appropriate places, I have grade separations, like right here on Summit Park Boulevard, which also happens to have the tram lines running on it. And then there's a partial interchange right here at High Street. So they have access to this neighborhood and to get into the city center right here. Also, they have access to this little village here, this little neighborhood, which is Southgate, because that's the south gate to the city. And then Mulberry Avenue has another partial interchange, but it's really only designed to get people in and out of the city center or this intersection, because if you're coming from this direction, you can't just turn left there. So you'd have to, probably work your way through the neighborhoods to get over there. And this is actually Southgate was originally industrial. There's actually a lot of industrial all through here. But also, I think I put it on Mulberry Street right here, which is this street. I made this street sort of snake around and over the highway because I wanted it to look like maybe it had been moved for the highway, because it had been. And then this interchange, I originally thought I was going to have this greenway keep going. I changed my mind, and I left this neighborhood over here. Actually, I built this neighborhood, but I built it to make it look like the highway had come through and separated it. That's actually a very common occurrence. It happens a lot in American cities, or it has happened a lot in American cities where they build a highway and it splits a neighborhood. So in this case, it was sort of a working class industrial neighborhood over here. This over here is part of it. So this is all sort of an extension of the South of Market neighborhood. And it also is the way you can come in from the west, coming in on Mulberry Avenue. And then this I've been building up. This is Sterling Valley. Now, this used to be a confluence of Mulberry. I think that's Cambridge Boulevard, maybe? I can't remember. Or that might be, I think that might be Springfield Road or something like that. This is Sterling Road, which goes across. And then this is Thomas Mountain Road or something like that. I reconfigured some of this, but I wanted to keep the little triangle here. So I have a little bypass road. I'll show you guys. Actually, the way way I did this, if you want to get, there's a few mods you want to get, like the Find It mod, Plop the Growables, Move It is obviously really helpful, but I think Find It and Plop the Growables, and also I think Force Upgrade is another one that's useful here. But all I did was I laid out Sterling Road right here. And, you know, this would be way too complicated of an intersection with way too many really inconvenient, terrible turns, especially considering that this is actually a truck route, a good part of it. Although it's not very busy right now. Not exactly sure why. But if you lay out a street, you can plop your buildings down and follow the grid. Using the right assets, they will be wall-to-wall buildings, which is cool for a downtown. Or cool for a little neighborhood, you know, business district. You have plenty of those in Europe, plenty of those in the U.S., especially in older cities. And then all I did was with Find It, as long as you have, once you place the building, well, you're good. So I just bulldozed out parts of the road that I didn't want to have anymore and put this new road in, and everything works. And it works a lot better because the street geometry is more appropriate. Helps with the traffic light timings and stuff like that. So it's a good way to go. Trying to think if there's anything else with this. Let's see, I think I see another question here. Are all of your assets growable, or do you use ploppable? How do you control specific districts maintaining a specific look and feel? You're probably going to love this. I've spent a lot of time just plopping these down by hand. Almost all of these have been plopped by hand. Now, there are tricks. Maybe I'll even show you some of the tricks here in a minute here. If you have a nice straight street, it really helps. You also want to look for assets that have angles to them. Like this building here is one of my favorites. It's got a 105-degree angle to it. Really useful for when you have a slight curve, sort of like this, or a slight angle on one of the streets, because it still looks pretty natural. You don't have giant gaps in between the buildings, but even when you do, it still looks okay. I mean, I think it looks all right. I'd really like it if it was contiguous, but it just doesn't always work out as well as you'd hoped, like right here. it's really difficult to do with the way City Skylines has buildings. If they ever made it so that it was easier, that would be super cool. Now here's the story. One of the things I always like to do is I like to have a story for the neighborhood. So the story for this neighborhood is that there were two brothers who owned streetcar lines, these tram lines, and they used to, their father, the grandfather had owned streetcar lines that ran all through town. When the city bought them out to build the metro, the subway underneath Market Street, which was their busiest line and their most profitable one, then they were able to plow their money into building a new neighborhood out here in Anderson Park, which is this neighborhood right here. This is Anderson Hill. And so they got to starting on it a long time ago, built the tram line out, got a lot of buildings built, but then market conditions, as always, changed and put them out of business. So all this land on the other side of Anderson Hill laid for years without ever getting touched, until one day they were able to settle all the legal disputes, and somebody else got a hold of it and started developing this, along with this area here with a new road that sort of connects over here to the rail terminal from Lakeview Village, because this over here on the other side of the street is Lakeview Village, while this over here is still part of our city and part of Anderson Hill. So that's why we have a fun little contrast here of modern buildings across a neighborhood with all sorts of old looking buildings. The brothers don't run the tram line anymore. It's all owned by the city, but either way, that was the story that I sort of made up to make that neighborhood work. Now the tram line originally was built to develop this neighborhood over here, which is Richie Boulevard, and that's the road that has a tram line running down it. It's got a nice little park, nice little commercial district right here, and it's got all these row houses that spoke out away from Richie Boulevard. Eventually, Summit Park was also built, which this is Summit Park Boulevard right here, as an even bigger park and a bunch more row houses. Now, what I did with this neighborhood is this building here actually has 3 different colors. I'll show you what I mean, but take a good look before I leave. Take a good look at how nice that is. It definitely has a certain character to it. Gives it a sense of place. You're like, oh, I'm out in Summit Park. So now if I go over here to University Park, zoom, I have the same buildings, but they have the red highlights. And if you go to alternate streets, some of these have the yellow highlights or orange or whatever color that is. I think there's some streets that might have green. I can't remember. Either way, you get an idea of place just because of the building styles and the way they're mixed or matched or whatever. So you see a neighborhood that looks like this, you're like, oh, wow, that's probably University Park. Meanwhile, I have some of those same buildings over here in Cranston Park, but they're just mixed in randomly with all sorts of other random building styles. We've got these fancier ones with the bay windows. We've got sort of a Tudor look to this one. And, lots of different kinds of looks here. But Cranston Park, that's the way it is. It doesn't really have a whole lot of rhyme or reason. It's closer to downtown. It's, where a lot of working class people at some point lived, because this was all industrial over here originally. And now it's probably a hip neighborhood where all the cool kids go to hang out, all the hipsters go to find restaurants and whatnot. And then, you're going to see a lot of the same, although a little more density over here in south of Market, which also has a little park in the center. So those are some ideas of how to create a place. Now over here, I've got, this is basically supposed to be redeveloped industrial area. Not all of it was completely industrial. Some of it was. I just kind of continued the grid, and, you know, sort of did a quasi-urban suburbia type of feel to this with skyscrapers. More modern buildings through here, and a few old ones, you know, that were, you know, maybe the outlet store side of big warehouses or something like that next to the factories, and a lot of really, really modern apartment buildings and things like that. And then, of course, you get out by High Avenue and Crestview. Well, you've got some of the old commercial buildings that are still here and office buildings. So it makes for a nice look to the neighborhood. It certainly looks unique. Over here, we've got some bigger buildings, but then it drops off to single family houses and row houses over here in the Summit Park. And this is also set up in a way that gives it some rhyme or reason. Warehouse district over here, next to the highway, next to the rail. Let's see here. Yeah, this is another neighborhood that got, whoops, going a little fast here, that got coordinated pretty nicely, but it's still pretty random. And it's got all the warehouses and everything like that. It's got the riverfront. I haven't figured out what to do with this side of the street yet. I don't know if I want to turn it into all park, but that's a possibility. Right now, it's just single-family houses that look really cartoony and weird. Over here, I redeveloped this to make it look like it wasn't all industrial before. It was, but it's also got a much more random look and a certain height of building in a lot of places with a few random outliers. And then where the highway went through and the interchanges were built and some of the roads were reconfigured, I put in more modern buildings because it wouldn't look like these old things. You'd have bigger buildings coming in because, hey, we're going to have highway access. There's metro lines running through here. We want to take advantage of that. That is a giant office building right there. And then we've got a few more modern buildings where maybe it's infill development. These are assets that are New England style. One of the things I'll advise for everybody is find your favorite asset creators, because it's sort of like finding somebody who makes music you like. You hear one song. I mean, some people, maybe their tastes are a little different, but I know with me, when I hear a song by somebody, chances are good I'm going to like some of their other songs, especially if I like another one. You know, like if I like two of their songs, I'm probably going to like 5 or 20 or 30, you know, because they make the kind of music I like. Well, asset creators are the same way. Find your favorite asset creators. So I've used a mix of ploppable and growable assets in here. A lot of them are growables, so you can actually let the game sort of pick and choose. But you're not going to end up with blocks like this unless you really want to get granular or you place them yourself. You know, it's really difficult to get the look you want unless you're the one picking what goes where. You know, like over here, this is, is this Duffield? I can't remember without turning on the neighborhood view. But again, you know, I'm densifying a little bit more intensely here along University because I've got a bus line, a major bus line that runs through here, and, you know, got a lot of row houses, already have some density. We're just taking advantage of it. And, you know, more of the same over here. This actually over here was redeveloped. That's the story here. That's why there's mostly modern buildings right here with older buildings alongside. This is a problem. I do not understand why rivers flood so, but I end up with flooding problems all the time on my highway because of the river. Really love that not happening, but it sort of became a necessity with the tunnels. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen quite frequently. More frequently than you want, which is that it happens at all, especially since this isn't an ocean map. So yeah, Pinewood, that's another one that I'll show you guys. A lot of density right in here, and that's because we have a metro line and a commuter rail line that runs through here, and a lot of industrial over here. This neighborhood sort of fits together here. That was the plan. And then a little more random development out here for a few blocks. The metro line continues out into the single family neighborhood, but we've got several bus lines, and I think this actually, actually the other metro line comes out over here. I think that's actually the end of it, the Sheffield line. So the idea is you want to zone higher density along your transit lines. This is a busy area out here. Now these traffic lights on these two intersections are actually coordinated, just FYI. And I think there's some other coordination going on over here with some of these other lights. But it allows quite a lot of traffic movement to get through here. But it is definitely a faster frame rate with the shadows turned off. I'm glad you mentioned that, Conscript. Keys would help with the flooding over there on the freeway that we just saw. The problem is that if I build keys, I can't really build them over the bridge itself, because the river somehow rises up so high that it is over the level of the bridge, which I don't think a key would actually help me much there. I've tried to build it as high as I can, but I don't want to have a huge grade going into that tunnel either, so it's sort of a catch-22. I probably just need to maybe tweak how the water works or something like that on this map. But this is kind of a cool set of intersections right here. Now, I've used speed limits here and some engineering just to give you an idea of some of the things that we're doing here. This is actually a truck route because there's a lot of industry through here. And there's also a rail terminal right over here, cargo terminal. Also, this is a big feeder for a lot of the commerce in the center of our city. So there's a ton of traffic running through here, trucks trying to get through. Now, this part of Market is really just standard. I have the speed limit set, I think, at 50 kilometers per hour. But once you get out over here, I'm going to pull up TMPE here. And we'll go to the speed limits. And then I've got 80 kilometers per hour out on Market Avenue. And as you can see, there's only two intersections. There's one here and one over here. And then there's another one at Sheffield Boulevard, which is the major intersection. We also have a parallel one. This is Spring Mill Boulevard. That's set at 60 kilometers per hour. It has few intersections, but it runs right through the center of Pinewood. That's not really a place I want to have a lot of trucks. Spring Mill Boulevard will actually run all the way out here to the highway interchange too. Now, I don't mind having trucks so much on Continental Drive out here past Pinewood and over here by the depot. That's sort of designed for it. I've got trees and everything to help reduce the noise from the trains and from the industry and all that fun stuff. But I don't really have that going on over here. I have to redevelop some of this neighborhood. There used to be more industry out here, more big office buildings that I just didn't like the way they looked. So I changed up some of this. But either way, this is not the road that I want all the trucks really going down to get through. I'd rather them go down Market and then take Continental Drive past the rail terminal. And to incentivize that, I've set the speed limit at 80 here and 60 here. This road is big enough it can handle that. It also doesn't have too many intersections on it, so it can handle it. And then Sheffield Boulevard runs right into Sheffield. So that's another way for trucks to come in from the highway or get back to the highway going through here, or to get back into town or go to the rail terminal. So that's why there's so much traffic running through here. So speed limits definitely help incentivize traffic going where you want it, not going where you don't want it. It looks like I have to fix the speed limit right there. That should be 50. forgot to hold my shift key. So that's the idea that we've got here. Market Street it actually runs right straight into the middle of town. Market Avenue, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, and then this is probably the worst interchange I've ever built. But I really didn't know that I had any other choice. So a lot of this is born out of the terrain and just geography. So I didn't want to have trucks making left turns to go around here to get on a ramp because they needed to get off and have enough room to queue up to turn right without backing up onto the highway. I needed to have a little opportunity for them to change lanes. It just would have been a huge nightmare, and I didn't want them going through this neighborhood through Imperial Glen right here because that would just create all sorts of other traffic problems since there's a ton of trucks here. So I want trucks to be able to get through, and this is a complicated area too. I end up creating some of these issues, but these happen all the time in real life, and you just have to work them out. So these are old roads that took you in and out of the city or just took you around the countryside and made it so that, we had connectivity. And then I decided to put an industrial park out here. Well, that works out okay, but it creates its own traffic problems. And I had to work that out with a timed traffic light, which, as you can see, sometimes keeps up and sometimes falls behind. So this interchange had to be built so that it would accommodate trucks changing lanes and all that stuff right here coming off the highway. So I couldn't just build a folded diamond right here without going through the neighborhood. So I ended up building this ramp that runs up and then puts you on the highway here. Now, why didn't I just go right straight up there? There's no problem with that, right? Well, except for that I have this big system interchange with the Jacobs Greenway right here. So highway to highway interchanges, you want to keep them far apart from any other kind of interchange or you end up with trouble. So basically, as a preventative measure, I have this really wacky bridge that doubles back trucks, and it gets used, so it's working. And it gets a little sleepier out here on the edge of Pinewood. Most of this is really suburban, but I have the urban core over here too. And I started building another little burg up here called Vista, which is named because it does have a really good view. But I only just started on that and haven't been working on it much since. But this highway I moved out here, I think I moved it. I don't know if I actually rebuilt all of it, but it just runs right up over that hill, and then you get a really good view of New Springfield. It'd look a little better if I had the sun going the other way or coming in from the northeast, I think. Let me see here. What else did I want to show you guys? Let's see. I think I have another question in here. If I recall correctly, building outside the 25 tile area causes tsunamis. I'll try and find a link to post. Oh, hey, that would really help. The conscript, I really appreciate. Expletive, I'm sorry. Got you mixed up. Expletive, I really appreciate that. That would be super cool to make sure, see that. I build outside the 25 tile area all the time. There's actually another one. So this is the end of High Street, which just sort of terminates out here by itself. Doesn't really go anywhere yet. Little bridge over the canyon. It's a covered bridge right now because it's just a dirt road that doesn't go anywhere. Goes around that little cove. And out here to Spring Mill, where we have the big honking interchange. Now, just a little bit on interchange design here. Originally, this is all very industrial with a lot of trucks. It still has a lot of industry because we've got all that industry in Pinewood and we've got that rail terminal over there. So there's still a lot of traffic coming through there. This is not ideal right here. This is just way too much hairpin, and I've got this big flyover ramp just to make sure that I'm not forcing a left turn here that's just going to take up too much signal time. And I also have my ramps. Let's see here. Yeah, I've got an exit there and an exit there. So I've got both directions covered, and I have a signalized right turn here. And I think I just have a yield right here. These guys are supposed to yield to these guys, I think. It gets a little dicey there. It's not ideal for sure, but it's not a service it's a service interchange, not a system interchange, so I can get away with it. Now, since I have all this going on, all this hubbub going on with the roads, with the ramps merging and everything like that, I've actually banned pedestrians crossing over here and going over on the side and build a walkway that takes them over on this side. And it does get used, as you can see. So just a few little urban design things to keep in mind. I've got a bus depot right here, so that feeds buses into a lot of my city. The other bus depot is up the highway on the other side of town. Looks like we're doing well here. That flood's cleared out. I also redid the rails to make the grades realistic, so you probably already saw that if you're familiar with the live stream. It's pretty big deal. This one has some pretty steep grades, but it's not too bad. Right there, you can see there's a bit of a grade to that, but it's pretty gentle compared to a lot of things that were here before. Runs through that trench. This is freight rail, and this is passenger rail. So all the passenger rail runs through this terminal. I do not have any other main railroad terminals anywhere. Let's tell the short story of Sheffield here. Okay, so since the railroad, I didn't have the heart to demolish any of New Springfield proper. A lot of times what would happen is across the river, or maybe even not even across the river, there's a lot of towns around America where the original city just wasn't very convenient or in a good place geographically speaking for a rail station. So what they would do is the railroad would come through, and maybe they would actually get a land grant in a lot of cases, or we're going to talk about that coming up in the More Money, Less Traffic series. But they might get land grants on either side of the railroad, and so the railroad owns some land, and they're like, well, hey, we're going to make our own town. We'll build a station over here. It'll be close enough that it'll be useful to those people, but it'll be maybe a mile or two away at least. And we'll have our own town. We'll build up our own hotels, our own commercial, our own, workers and residences and stuff like that out in this new area that we own. And we'll make lots of money and still get to ship a lot of freight. And, that town will compete with the original one. A couple of examples of that. One would be Las Vegas, not Nevada, but Las Vegas, New Mexico, I know is one of them. But this happened all across the West. Las Vegas, New Mexico is a very old city. I want to say it's older than, it was not founded as part of the United States. The United States acquired New Mexico, that area, way late in the game, like way after 1850, if I recall. And I think that was the Mexican-American War, somewhere in there. And so that wasn't even a U.S. territory when Las Vegas, New Mexico was founded. And what ended up happening is they put the rail station way far away from the central square. And so it was basically two competing Las Vegases for a while. Eventually, they all kind of grew to the point where they merged, sort of like what we have here. There wasn't a river in between or anything like that. Just, it's kind of desert in the mountains. It ended up leading to having kind of two downtowns for that little town. I forget how many people live there. I want to say it might be 10, 20,000. I could be way off on that. I'm not really sure. Another place that had an across the river war, there's a lot of them. I think New York City actually was one of them, but one I'm really familiar with, because you had all the Long Island stuff going on. You had Brooklyn and Queens across the East River, and then you had Manhattan. Eventually, they all got merged into New York City, but either way. But one I'm really familiar with is right in my own backyard, Cleveland, Ohio. Used to have, on the east side, was where Cleveland was founded by Moses Cleveland, the surveyor who came through and laid out the Western Reserve, which was basically the northeastern quadrant of Ohio, up to the Pennsylvania border and about halfway across the, to maybe Toledo, almost maybe 2/3 of the way to Toledo, actually. So that area across on the east side of the Cuyahoga River was Cleveland. On the west side of the Cuyahoga River, other settlers came through in Brooklyn Township, I think it was, and they founded a town called Ohio City, which was going to be the New York City of Ohio. The streets are even named after streets in Lower Manhattan, because you got to think about it. It's not like you had all these, streets in Upper Manhattan, because this is early in the 19th century. New York City was exploding in size and everything, but it was nothing like it was going to become 100 years later in the early 20th century, when they started building skyscrapers and, really built New York City into a big skyscraper kingdom. Ohio City and Cleveland went at it. They had to battle the bridge a long time. There were lots of small bridges that they wanted to build. Oftentimes, business leaders in Cleveland would want to build a bridge somewhere that would make it so that people didn't have to go through Ohio City to get into Cleveland, and people in Ohio City would get all mad and say, no, you can't build a bridge there. We're going to build a bridge here, which would make it so that you didn't have to go through Cleveland. It was a war. And it still lives on to this day in a lot of cases, because you have the east side, west side rivalry in some cases. I think it's kind of silly, really, because both sides of town have their good and bad parts, good and bad points, I should say. But either way, it's an interesting story. Eventually, the city of Cleveland annexed Ohio City. I want to say that was probably 1840s, 1850s, maybe 1870s. I can't remember exactly when it was. It's been a while since I researched all that. But yeah, it made for an interesting reason why things are the way they are. In this case, New Springfield had its downtown going, but it just wasn't a good place for the railroad. The railroad didn't, want it. Somebody was able to pull the railroad over here and built up the town of Sheffield, which eventually got absorbed into New Springfield as part of the city, but it still serves as sort of a second downtown and the rail hub for the city. Made it interesting for building the highway through. Like it literally runs in a tunnel right under downtown, right under Sheffield. It definitely has a unique look as you're driving through. You really get a good view of the city. And I think one of my favorite views, let me switch over to morning here. That'll make the buildings look all pretty from this angle. What's also cool is as you're coming in on the highway, I've actually made it so that things aren't blocked up too much. You can actually see the railroad station. You can see the railroad station as you come through. It's kind of cool. Because I left this open with a park. Another thing I'll show you is how I laid out the streets for New Springfield. And I did this way before I ever had a skyscraper anywhere. Make it high noon here. Close to it. There we go. Excuse me. Okay, so the idea I had was I wanted to have High Street, which connected to my original highway interchange, which was somewhere about here. So High Street ran up here to where Mulberry is, and then there was the typical three-way interchange that this game has. And I always intended, I don't know what I expected to do with Mulberry Street originally. I just thought maybe I'd run it This kind of runs in a little bit of a valley right here. You sort of have a little bit of an incline to either side. You got Apple Hill right here, and then the Jacobs North neighborhood. I don't know if that slopes up or down. I think it starts to slope up. I'm not sure. It's very subtle. Anyway, so I had High Street running through here, and I wanted to have a street that ran straight out to the lake. That was Lake Street. I put a little kink in it because I was so impressed that City Skylines let you do that. So rather than it being a perfectly straight street, I bulldozed part of it in the center here and just put a little bit of a curve and reconnected it. Then I wanted to have Market Street run out here. I don't think I had a bridge. No, I didn't have a bridge. My goal, though, was eventually to have these two roads run out to interchanges at this bridge, across bridges over here. So Market Street, I wanted to have it angle out, and my whole thinking was I wanted it to head towards that mountain because I thought it would look cool. It does look cool. You can go to the top of that mountain and look straight down Market Street. Now over here, I just wanted to have Pine Avenue run out from the center, but I didn't want it to come into the center because I thought that would probably create too much traffic all right in the same place. So what I did instead is I had a few blocks in between and ran Pine Avenue, even at a slight angle, because I thought it was cool. That ran down to the riverfront. I had never intended to build a bridge right here. I just wanted Pine Avenue to connect down to the river. That made for a good reason to put a little curve right here, right downtown on High Street, which sort of follows the contour of the riverfront. And then over here, I think I originally had an interchange that ended right here at the highway. Eventually extended it out here because I thought that seemed more natural. Then the other thing I was thinking is I wanted to have a park, and I wanted to have another major road running through downtown. And that's what became Park Avenue. Then I eventually extended Mulberry, and one of the other ideas I thought was kind of cool is to have a fake street. So Park runs through here and snakes along. But here, this is Sunrise Valley, this neighborhood right here. I've got two parallel two-way streets that you get from the Network Extensions 2 mod. I wanted to run a metro line up through here, and I wanted it to run along University. I had no idea at the time where I was going to run University. I just knew I wanted it to go up to the greenway I have up here. Let me get rid of the contours here. So I just extended the road and worked it out so that this would continue on pretty much the same path that University comes down, except that University would take a curve across Mulberry and go around downtown and down to the tip of the peninsula, which would give me some nice connectivity across through there as I built neighborhoods up. So that's sort of what I had going on in here. So it's almost like Park Avenue doesn't just have, this intersection here doesn't just have a two-way, two streets intersecting. It's almost got a third one at this square. So it's sort of a fake street. It's not exactly what you think, especially if you're looking at it from a distance. So I thought that was kind of cool. And the other thing I had in mind was I wanted to have some symmetry here, but it's kind of fun to have symmetry without having it be perfect. I had Apple Hill in the way, and I didn't want to just build the grid right over it. I wanted to build the grid on the other side of High Street, and I wanted to build the grid into Mulberry at some point, then go up the hill. But I also wanted to have some symmetry downtown, so that's this is almost like a dumbbell right here, because I've got Park crossing Lake. Lake runs right into the center of town. I've got a university and a park right there, and I've got a park in the same spot over off of Park Street that I have on Lake Street. So it worked out to have some nice symmetry to it, just sort of by accident. I don't know what to say. All I can say is it looks really cool. This is honestly one of my favorite cities. I don't know if it looks... I don't know what it looks like to you guys. I hope it's interesting. It's got a lot of curves, but it's also got a lot of squares. I mean, you can still look straight up and down the blocks right here through most of downtown and other parts of town. It's just got a cool look to it in so many ways. So let me see if you have any other questions here. Can you explain system and service interchanges? Okay, that's a really good question. I like that. Well, thanks, Conscript. I appreciate it. The good views. I like the views. It's fun. Okay, so system interchanges and service interchanges. This map is probably not the most ideal, but it'll do. All right, so basically you've got... I almost sort of wonder if this isn't more of a railroad term, or maybe it originated in railroad terminology, but with highways... Well, let me explain with railroads. With railroads, when you had two rail lines that would converge, that was maybe two main lines, I should say, sort of like we have right here. This isn't exactly a convergence. This is more of an interchange itself. But I think it actually will help give you the idea. These rails connect, but it's not like there's anything going on there. There's no stations. You have to have a station or a terminal to provide service. So with the main line running through here and interchanging with the other main line, because this is a main line for a more second, this would probably be a Class 1 railroad, and this would probably not be Class 1 in the United States railroad terminology. So what you have here, though, is you have these two railroads have their systems merged. So that each network can access the others. But there's no service to that immediate area unless you have a terminal like we have right here, or right here, or right here. So that provides service to the neighborhood to access the railroad network. Highways work the same way. This here is a perfect example of a service interchange. Well, I don't know about perfect. It's a good example one. Actually, I got a better idea. This one, a system interchange. I'm sorry. That was a system interchange. This here is a system interchange. There's no reason to... This is not a destination. This is not going to help you get anywhere but to another highway. That makes it a system interchange. So highway to highway interchanges are system interchanges. We do not want to have cars slowing down, traffic slowing down to go through a system interchange, because if it does, there's a lot of heavy traffic on these highways, especially if your city's smaller, ironically. You have like 80,000 sims, your system interchanges are a lot busier because there's actually a lot more traffic density that the game generates because it doesn't have so much city to simulate. So this system interchanges, you don't want to have too much in the way of slowdowns. You want to avoid them if at all possible, so that traffic on all the highways doesn't get slowed down. Now, in some places, like Los Angeles, for example, I know for sure, that is pretty much impossible to manage because you just have too many highways merging together and not enough lanes to put them all in, and you have too much traffic, all that fun stuff. So they actually have traffic signals on highways, highway interchanges that will stop traffic from clogging up a highway when in a system interchange. So in really dense, really car-dependent areas, these kinds of system interchanges still end up with signalization sometimes, just to keep the traffic moving on one of the highways. And studies have shown that it does work. All right, so now a system interchange. This is a really good example of a service interchange. So service interchanges make it so that you can get to the surface level streets where you might actually have houses and offices and, commercial development, industrial development, things like that. Service interchanges don't need to be as elaborate usually. It depends on how much traffic the road has and where that traffic is trying to go. In this case, this is just a sleepy little suburban interchange on the edge of town. It might have a few businesses that are coming through here, but let's be honest, it's a way shorter route for them to get off at High Street and take Spring Mill into that industrial area. So this is really just a sleepy little suburban area. You might have some access going on here to get to this, might have some traffic getting off here to go to this industrial area, to Imperial Glen Industrial Park. This is another more elaborate service interchange because it's providing service to surface roads and the neighborhoods off of that. This here is sort of a combo. This is a system interchange because it has two highways that meet, so you want to make sure that they don't have to slow down. But it's also got some system interchange elements, a service interchange elements. I keep mixing those words up. I'm so sorry, guys. We have some service interchange elements here too because we're accessing the surface road network right here with these ramps. But we tried to position these ramps in a way that they won't interfere with the traffic on the system interchange. So this is a little bit of a combo. So basically, it's fairly straightforward. Highway to highway, usually a system interchange, because in system interchanges you don't want people to slow down. You want them to keep on moving at highway speeds. Whereas service interchanges, there's two partial service interchanges right here, half diamond, and I don't know what you would even call this off the top of my head, but it has the same effect as having almost a full diamond interchange, except that it runs right into another road. But this is only a service interchange because it's not like we're worried about whether people have to slow down to make a turn to get on the ramp or anything like that. This is almost system interchangey right here, but it's because the geometry had to be built that way, even if it's just a service interchange, because I think it would have been too complicated with this intersection right here. A lot of traffic would want to come in and out of Station Avenue because it runs right straight into the heart of this neighborhood. This folded diamond interchange would also be a service interchange because, again, you're providing service to this neighborhood to a surface street. These are at-grade intersections, so this is what we'd call it in Ohio is we'd call it an expressway. If you're somewhere out on the East Coast, though, you don't call it an expressway because expressways are actually freeways. In Ohio, though, and in some parts of the country, you would call this an expressway because it does have at-grade intersections. I don't know what you would call it exactly. Maybe a boulevard in New York, Massachusetts, somewhere over there. This here is another bit of a combo with, and this uses frontage. These frontage roads, these aren't really frontage roads. These are collector distributor roads. So this is a good example of collector distributor roads. What we've done here is we've got a service interchange right here at Crestview Avenue. And then we've got a system interchange right here with Jacobs Greenway on the North-South Expressway. We don't want traffic interfering with, especially the North-South Expressway. This road is not, the most ideal highway anyway. It's got short ramps. It's not really designed for high speed no matter what. It has higher speed, but it's not high speed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have at-grade intersections. So what we've done here is we have a kind of dumbed down service interchange, but one that makes sure that it's not interfering with the North-South Expressway traffic. We want to make sure this traffic continues to keep moving. But we also want this interchange here at Crestview to be able to interact with, get on to the Jacobs Greenway, but also get on the North-South Expressway in both directions. So we've separated out some of that traffic by having a collector distributor road on the east side of the road, east side of the North-South Expressway that eventually merges on. So you could actually exit right here and just follow this and just get right back on if you really wanted to. It's designed so that these short merges, you're merging on right here. I didn't want to build flyover ramps. I didn't feel like that was necessary. And if I build a flyover ramp, it would just take up too much real estate to do all the flyover ramps. I did build flyover ramps over here because that's a system interchange. But we've got traffic bypassing and then able to get off in both directions right there. That's just a straight on interchange. If we're coming off of Jacobs Greenway, you're merging on right here, but it's well before a merge right there. We don't have any conflicting movements or any weave areas on the North-South Expressway that are on the main line. They're all on the collector distributor roads. This would be another collector distributor road, really. Although it doesn't stay on because we don't really need it. So, yeah, highway design it's a complicated subject, but mainly you just want to make sure you keep your system main lines moving. And, here's another service interchange. It's a perfect little diamond interchange. It's more rural. It's got much longer ramps. And it services this little town here of Ridgewood, which is where the southern terminus of High Avenue is. Runs right into downtown. So hopefully this gives you an idea of what we're talking about when I talk about service interchanges like this one. And, let's go to the other side of town. Well, okay, you know what? I didn't get into this one. This is another service interchange, but it's got a lot of system element. This is a system interchange because we've got two highways crossing. Because of the geography, I couldn't build a stack interchange. I totally favor a four-way stack at a time like this, but when I had to weave in all of these other ramps because of the service interchanges, it got complicated. Okay, so basically this is a diamond interchange right here with Market Avenue. This is a single point urban interchange because I have a lot more traffic on Park Avenue. Now, single point urban interchanges they are an important way of, okay. Just checking out the chat here, guys. Okay, so single point urban interchanges are a way of dealing with left turn conflicts. There are other ways of doing it, like the diverging diamond interchange is another one, but I feel like the diverging diamond interchange has certain strengths that are sort of opposite of this single point urban interchange or SPUIs. Single point urban interchanges, and this is kind of a really bad view because the SPUI is actually underneath the highway. Basically, what we've done is we've taken all the left turns and put them into a single point on the surface road. So the right turns split off and they go to the right. The left turns come up here and they stop at the light. Same thing on the other side. And then the entrance ramps are the same way. You have a single point where traffic turns left off of the surface road. I need to work with the node controller to make that a little wider so that it's a little smoother. That was not out at the time I built this city. So basically, you're taking all the left turns, putting them in the center, and that makes it so you do not have to have as many light cycles. You have three cycles. Well, three splits, I should say. Somebody corrected me and said, oh, you don't want to call those cycles because running through the entire, every red and green light before you start running through the same thing, those are cycles. And everything is a split. So you have three splits instead of four, or, really complicated. Because what will happen with a diamond interchange, like right here, is these guys want to turn left. And then there's guys coming off of here and they want to get on the highway and they want to turn left. And you've got the same thing going on in the opposite direction. These guys want to turn left and these guys want to turn left. What ends up happening is you have a whole slew of traffic that backs up on here. This is really not the best interchange because it's just not busy enough. But the problem is that you have left turns conflicting everywhere. You can't just have lefts come off the highway because they're going to get stopped when they get to the other side of the interchange. That's one of the big drawbacks of diamond interchanges, and why sometimes you see diamonds that are not built so close together. This happens to be not a super heavy traffic interchange, which is why I went with a diamond there. By contrast, I'll go out here. Okay, this interchange here really is pretty busy. Well, it used to be anyway. It's much further apart because of the left turns. So if we had a lot of left turns trying to get through here, we'd have a lot of storage space, and we just have to have a longer light cycle to release all the left turns with protected arrows and stuff like that. That gets really time consuming if you have a really, really, really busy interchange with a lot of traffic coming on and off the highway. I think this interchange, well, at one point was very busy. It doesn't seem to be anymore. Probably losing a bunch of sims somewhere. Yeah, that's another diamond right there. That can get pretty busy, but isn't right now for whatever reason. So single point urban interchanges mitigate the left turn conflicts, and they shorten the traffic light cycles so that traffic doesn't have to wait as long for a green light. Hopefully that helps you understand what's going on there. So let's talk about assets. Let's see here if I can pull up my Steam window here. Here we go. Okay. So I want to show you a few of my favorite asset builders. These guys are really responsible for making, any city look much better. If any of you happen to be on here, well, thank you. I really appreciate it, because it takes a lot of time to place all these assets, but it takes even longer to make them. So Smiley's is starting to make a collection of Main Street assets for probably low density areas, but his also has a lot of, or she, I'm not sure whether it's a he or a she in that case, but they also have a lot of dense condominiums and stuff like that. The Main Street collection seems to be relatively new. King Leno is somebody that you want to follow if you're, especially if you're American, you're trying to make an American city, especially suburban style, with the big box stores and the car dealerships and the McDonald's and Burger King, and right here we've got Buffalo Wild Wings. He has done a fantastic job at creating assets that look just like the real thing, with the branding and everything, so you can make a real live looking, especially if you're building a suburban area. Or maybe a more corporate urban area. Then there's, let's see here. Clayt 45 makes a lot of mods. I think they are the ones behind some of the updates to the Find Roads tool. All right, so let's see what else we have. Smiley's. Bad Peanut. Okay, he is working apparently with, I can't remember the creator. You guys can probably help fill me in. But there's a creator out there that's making a YouTube series of Springfield from The Simpsons. So Bad Peanut is apparently working on that as well as King Leno, I think. Bad Peanut makes the best railroad stations. He also has some great road assets. So if you're looking for railroad stations that do something different from the typical, look for him. Let's see here. Avanya. She is a great asset creator. She makes a lot of industrial assets. I think she worked on keys, whatever you want to call them. I'm probably saying it wrong if I say quay. Most people probably say quay if they speak English. She does a whole bunch of really good industrial assets. I've used a bunch of her stuff, and she's a really awesome content creator. I think she actually also made the European Suburbia asset pack that you can get on the workshop, in the Steam store. Prosper makes some good I think these are more modern looking condominiums. Reaper is another one that makes some good big condominiums. One of my favorites is Chrysler. They really do some fantastic assets there. That's Chrysler with a K, otherwise spelled exactly like the automobile company. I know we get into some of these other ones that are big favorites here. Where we go. Moravania assets. She's actually making some Sunset Harbor assets right here. I'm not sure how to say this. Criterion makes the best metro assets. We can have, let me go back to the game. I'll show you the metro assets. I would be lost without these things. They also are all updated for Sunset Harbor, so they're longer stations. So I think those are it. Are they? I want to make sure I get to the right ones. Okay, I think these are actually the new ones. Yeah, they are. Okay, so you want to look for the SH. Don't get the old ones. The old ones will cause problems for you because they're much shorter than now what are vanilla stations. So these are deeper platforms. They're just like the vanilla ones, but they're deeper. And that's important for when you're going under a river. So then you can have your station be super deep, and then you don't have as big of a grade, and the game likes it and doesn't give you a hard time about the slope being too steep because you're already super deep. If you're using the Fine Road tool, it makes it a lot easier. If you're not using the Fine Road tool, you're not going to really get a whole lot of help there because the game's just going to keep it at the same depth, I think. Unless you... Well, no, actually, that's not true. I think you can actually use it even if you aren't using Fine Road tool, but I think you're crazy if you don't. Fine Road tool is an essential mod as far as I'm concerned if you're going to go with mods. There's diagonals. There's crossing stations at different angles. There's parallel stations. There's parallel crossing stations. There's even triangle stations, star stations, you name it. Some of these are older assets over here. I think there are even curved stations. So these are really great. Now, another one I'll show you really quick too is some of these bad peanut stations. I don't even think I have all the ones I use. I'm not sure if you can get Boutelier Station. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. It's Boutelier or Bright Coppice. I'm not sure if you can get either of those anymore, but these are fantastic assets that are great for if you have a trenched railroad. This is an elevated bypass station, so the platforms are on... There's 4 tracks on the station. The 2 inner tracks are from the main line. The 2 outer tracks are platforms so that your trains can pull off into the station and not stop the main line traffic. Also great for express service. Elevated overroad station. I forget who made that one. Doesn't have the author's name in it. But that's another really great one I use in one city. It'll actually allow you to build over a boulevard. And then you can have the train, the railroad track. If you use Fine Road Anarchy, you can run the railroad right over in the median on a 4-lane road, or probably a 6 or an 8-lane road if you find the right asset. Ground bypass station, the same as the elevated bypass station. This one's from Bad Peanut 2. And, 2 main lines in the center, platforms on the side. Oh, we've got a couple of ground bypass stations, different styles here. Industrial elevated station, I've got that one in here. Just looks nice, and it's an elevated station, so you can just place a road right underneath it. And just some smaller stuff. Oh, yeah, and the modular stations are great. I've used the modern central station. It looks really nice and works really nice. You can make this as big or as small as you need it. Same with the modular elevated station. I use that in Puerto del Mar, and I use it in this city, in the Sheffield district. The modern central station actually also comes with bus connectivity, so you can build a bus hub along with the train station, or not. It depends on how you want to build it. But I've used that in one city, and I've got a few other stations in here and some over-the-road tracks. Oh, yeah, and the Kansas City Freight House. I forget the author of this one, but he makes some great assets. Industrial assets a lot of times, but also some big city commercial and office assets from Kansas City, which is a cool-looking little town. So check him out. Just look for anything Kansas City, and it'll be there. Let's go back to Steam and see if there's any others here. Smiley is also Smiley's also makes the inner city, which is, if you want to make a rundown neighborhood in your city, then you can use their assets for that. Drenable has some good stuff. DARF, I want to say that DARF makes some great assets. There's also some different American road assets. Works a lot better from what I've seen so far than some of the assets that we have for well, we used to have mods that would modify the roads and give them the right striping for American style. Now I really need to switch over all of these things so that I have the right road assets everywhere. It's a big job, though, I haven't gotten to yet. Let me see here. More Sunset Harbor assets from Avania. I know the first few pages covered most of them. Bloody Penguin also makes a lot of really great mods. Definitely check him out. So Cyterion, again, these are the metro stations. Key Network from Avania here. Let's see if I find build. Find build is an okay. DARF has some good assets right here. This is another one if you're looking for stuff that fits in with old American style architecture. Like turn of the century and earlier. Well, around turn of the century. Find Build, on the other hand, makes some fantastic sets. I've seen some good stuff from Berlin and Paris, but also Manhattan and Brooklyn. So Find Build, I feel like if there's anybody you want to follow Find Build, because he just makes so many great assets that are essential if you're going to make anything that looks American. We're probably going to start rolling out some of those in Puerto del Mar to make it look a little bit more realistic as time goes on. I might even try playing with building styles and stuff like that and see if I can make that work so that I don't have to do so much of it by hand off camera, because I don't have a lot of time these days. So anyway, those are a few of my favorite asset creators. I don't think I'm missing anybody really super active these days. There's another asset from Find Build, nice looking building from Berlin. You're gonna find most of the newer stuff really looks great. Yeah, this is European suburbia. Once again, Avania, just a great asset creator. So anyway, hopefully that helps you guys get some ideas of what's going on here. $2.20. That's the one. I knew it was one of the bigger ones. I couldn't think of his name. $2.20 is the one that's making the Springfield series. Thanks so much, Joaquim. Let's see here. So Conscript has taken off. Really appreciate you coming by. Looks like Tank Basel says, I think you should use for your assets with those SPS. Yeah, it's all about the screenshots, and I can actually make some pretty nice cinematics with these too. I just really like having a cool city. I like it when it works. I wish I could. I wish I had a little beefier computer, but I'm pretty happy with what I've got at the moment. If I get a chance to upgrade, I will, and hopefully it'll iron out some of the kinks in these bigger cities. Let's see here. Fast question I have. Base game, which DLC should I buy? I'm totally beginner. Either some great player. I'm not totally beginner. Okay. Andre says, hi from Portugal. First time watching live. Well, I'm glad to have you here. Really enjoyed your insights on American rail history during the Puerto del Mar series. What is your background? My background, I will get back to your question there, by the way, OTemp. My background is basically, I'm just a geek. I have an IT background. I have a photography background. So I've been into all sorts of different things over the course of my life. I'm a huge history buff. I love to travel, things like that. So, it's really interesting to just understand geography and history and how it all interacts and turn into really cool cities and the city skylines and help other people hopefully do the same. So, OTemp, you asked a question about which DLC you should buy. I'd love to actually run a poll on this. I'd like to see what my viewers would like to would think about this, and I probably will run one. But I would say that probably the number one DLC I would pick would be mass transit, and that is because not so much because you get monorails and blimps. I mean, those are okay. I honestly haven't really used them too much. But what you do get is road assets. Road assets are the stuff. If you are on Steam, if you're on PC and you have the Steam Workshop, you can go out there and get your hands on a ton of different road assets to make your roads look completely different, even neighborhood by neighborhood. And I don't think it takes up quite as much memory as Next 2. I could be wrong. I'm not really a mod developer. I've done, software, but not to the level that those guys do, at least not with this game. Let's see here. So, yeah, mass transit. Another one I would probably recommend would be Park Life. I haven't really used Park Life a whole lot in this city, although I did build a park. I just like the mechanics of Park Life better in general, but I also like the look of the parks. This is a Park Life park right here. I end up turning off a lot of the money-making features of the parks because I just feel like it's weird to make a bunch of money from parks. The vanilla game parks don't make money. And they don't really cost that much. This is another Park Life park right here. Not quite as fancy. I'm not quite digging my light either. I should probably make it a different time of day. Those are vanilla parks. This over here is another Park Life park. Got a lot of trees here, probably too many actually. And I've got a little bit of a fishing pier and some paths, gazebos, stuff like that. So Park Life, I haven't looked at assets for that, but it is pretty cool. I like the campus expansion. I like snowfall for the trams, not so much for the heat. I think that's kind of an annoying mechanic that they built into the game. It's pretty easy to deal with, but it's also pretty annoying to deal with. It doesn't necessarily add a new challenge to the game, but the trams are cool. So get the trams. If you want to get trams, go get snowfall. It's a really good way to go. I haven't played around with Sunset Harbor a lot, but I'm sort of liking some of the things I see. Industries is fun, but it's not really realistic. It creates so much traffic. I do not have any of the Industries DLC used on this entire map. I don't think. It is fun to play around with, but it's not necessarily realistic. So if you're looking for realism, the factories are pretty cool. Those look realistic in some cases, although they're really small. Like you're not going to get a steel mill or an auto plant that's not going to be like a mile long or a quarter of a mile long. They're huge. I have them over here in this area where I live, and they're just massive. Steel mills are even bigger. So all the ore processing and stuff like that, it's cute is what it is. So yeah, mass transit, Park Life, Industries, campus, that sounds pretty reasonable. After Dark is good. You get bicycling, bicycle lanes, things like that. That's really good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else out there, but I would, mass transit, Park Life, and Industries, and campus, I think, are probably the most fun of the bunch and add the most to the game, and also open up a whole world to you in the workshop if you're, on PC. Now, for those of you who went out and got the game for free on Epic Games, congratulations. You've got a great game on your hands. I would not pay for things from the Epic Store. I would highly recommend you play around with the vanilla game and whatever else you might be able to cobble together. But don't go worrying too much about the mods and all that other fun stuff. Maybe go get the ones you really, really want. But I wouldn't invest in Epic because it's just not a good way to go compared to Steam. Steam makes it so much easier to get mods and assets You don't have to worry about updating them, although sometimes updates are annoying. I highly recommend, if you're on Steam, that you back up the directories where your assets and mods are kept, because you don't know when someday that asset creator, it doesn't happen so much with mods. Mods almost live forever. And somebody, usually puts that up on GitHub so that they can update it. But with assets, you have no idea what's going to happen with those. Sometimes people just decide, well, I'm going to delete my Steam account, and you end up losing an asset that you very much used all over your city. Like I lost the Urban High School asset. Drives me crazy. So if you back up that directory, then and somebody takes it off the workshop, it doesn't just disappear from your city. You can actually retrieve it and throw it back in as your own custom asset. I would not recommend resharing that. That does get you into copyright problems. But you can use it in your own city, as far as I know. At least that's what I do. I have really no idea if there's copyright ramifications from using it on YouTube. Either way, those are some cool things that you can do with some of the DLCs, and you want to use Steam if you're going to go with more DLCs and spend some money. Wait for the sales, unless you've got a lot of money and you've got a lot of time and you want to play this game. It's worth the money at full price, but it's so much better to get them cheap on sale. And the latest ones that take a little while to come down in price. If they're really good, you can kind of get an idea. I've got all of the DLCs in here now, and we've been using them in Puerto del Mar and using them in, Green Cities. Green Cities is another one I would recommend. I actually might recommend that over Industries or Campus. But Green Cities has a lot of cool things. Sunset Harbor has the inland water treatment plant. That's kind of good. That's set. But I like Green Cities because you can avoid polluting like you've got over here. That is ugly pollution from the water system. And I could get rid of all of that if I just used the Eco Water Treatment Plant, but I'd have to do a whole bunch of work to get rid of those. Now that I have Sunset Harbor, I will do that at some point. I think Sunset Harbor might also come with the big water tower. But you can get a big water tower off the Steam Workshop. And I think I might use that on this map because I know, these intakes can really mess with your water level too. So anyway, those are some ideas, some thoughts I have, some opinions. You can do what you want with those. Just trying to hopefully save you a few bucks and help you have fun with the game. So see if we have any other questions here. And I think we're going to close it off. Biking, no, is not in the base game. So yeah, it's a bummer, but After Dark has it. After Dark has some other cool things. You get leisure and tourism specialization. I haven't really played with those since they've done some serious improvements with the tourism mechanics in the game. I will be covering that in More Money, Less Traffic at some point, but we've got a lot of really cool stuff going on with public transportation, densification, industries, rail. That's all in the pipe. Yesterday I finished writing part 6 of More Money, Less Traffic. I've gotten a lot of part 7 written, but I've got to tweak it. And I think I'm going to write part 8 before I start getting down to shooting it, because I want to have a lot of stuff in the pipe. And I'm going to got some other cool things down pretty soon. So I would expect a new More Money, Less Traffic somewhere before the end of the month. Hopefully in the next week and a half or so. So let me, just give me some time to work on that. I've got a lot of other stuff going on in my life right now that is making it really difficult for me to predict anything. So if you'll bear with me, I sure would appreciate it. Yeah, I've seen some other people. Yeah. I will say one of the things that Joaquin is saying in here, and the expletive is saying, is that Green Cities is a great DLC because it also has some updated looks for some old buildings. The more you can get away from base game vanilla assets, the better off your city will look. So some of the DLCs actually have, and especially some of the asset sets from our asset creators that they've had, like Cavanya's. Some of those are really gorgeous, but the base game stuff is really cartoony. I have to say, the more I play around with this and the more I look at screenshots online and videos, the more I really hate the look of all the vanilla vehicles. I mean, like big giant Tonka trucks driving around and hot dog vans and bug spray vans. And I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. Donut vans. The log trucks look okay. But anyway, they get the idea. They're just very cartoony looking. And when you have a really nice, pretty city like I've sort of got in parts here, those vanilla assets really stick out like a sore thumb. So DLC assets, though, on the other hand, are very nice. They must have gotten some good 3D modelers. I would love it if they would update the old assets for the game and maybe offer that as an option, sort of like they do with European and American style. So anyway, just a few more opinions. If Colossal Order happens to find my stream and listen all the way to the end, which they probably won't. Those are just some ideas I have. Maybe the YouTube algorithm will point them in the right direction. Anyway, just wanted to give you some ideas of ways you can beautify your city and make it look cool. I want to just tell you real quick that I did use Move It on some of this, although I don't really think maybe I didn't use Move It here. If I did, I used it very sparingly. This is almost, I think that's all vanilla right here. So this is all stuff that comes with Park Life or is in the base game already. And if you haven't watched part 5, I think it's part 5, where I get into Park Life Park specifically, you learn that props actually help with increasing your park score. So go get Park Life if you don't have it. Sometimes they'll offer it for free. Wait for sale. You can actually put them on your Steam wish list, and it'll tell you when they're on sale. It'll send you an email and everything. So it's a really good way to go. I really appreciate you guys coming on today and watching. I think we're going to end up here pretty soon. I wanted to let you know that we have a Discord server, and you can find the link in the description so that you can join in on the conversation. If you have any problems with your cities, feel free to drop in on Discord and share some screenshots, ask some questions. I may not always be there to help, but I have a lot of really skillful, experienced players that might be able to give you some good tips because they've watched my videos. So, and they've watched some other good YouTube creators out there too. There's a lot of good content on YouTube out there. So hopefully you'll be able to enjoy that, get your city functioning again, get your traffic worked out. Move your water inlets in Puerto del Mar to deeper water. Yeah, I need to do that. I need to just like build an island or something like that. That's actually a pretty common thing that happened here in the U.S. too. Actually, underwater cribs or underwater water intakes are usually more common in the modern era when it comes to that. Mr. Ricardo, hello, how are you? So, yeah, I know in Cleveland we have one intake from Lake Erie that you can see. It's called the 5 Mile Crib. It's only 3 miles offshore, but it's 5 miles from the pumping station that pumps the water out of Lake Erie and into water treatment plants. Then I think there's 3 more cribs, but they're all underwater. They're completely submerged intakes that pull water into other water treatment plants. I think it's 3, maybe it's 2, I forget. So yeah, I sort of wish that they did that in the game, although it'd make it a little hard to find. You could have some really decorative ones. I know I saw a really cool one on the Mississippi River in St. Louis, next to the Chain of Rocks Bridge. Or Chain of Rocks, I don't remember how they say that. Anyway, it's an interesting. I wish that the water system was a little more elaborate. I think it would be more challenging, especially if you had to deal with flooding and whatnot. It's actually pretty incredible. Flooding as in like, when it rains, not the kind when the river overflows like it does here in this city for some reason. Press does great work with assets. I can't remember the assets off the top of my head, but I will take your word for it, I'm sure. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section. I'm happy to help. And if you haven't already given this video a like, this live stream a like, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't given signed up for a subscription on my channel, I'd certainly appreciate that too. We just broke 10,000. Woohoo! And I really appreciate you guys all watching. It's been a lot of fun so far, and I'm looking forward to having even more fun in the future. You guys have fun and enjoy. And you know what I think I'm going to do is give you guys a train ride. That looks like a good place. Ride the train.